Welcome back to BunkaiGaming, this is Matt. So today I just wanted to talk about the Division and some of the things that have stood out to me while playing the game, and some of the things that probably I see need to be tweaked a little bit. So as such, I don't really want to cover over about the actual game mechanics or the visuals or the gameplay itself. I want to talk about more specific things. So first up, I want to talk about the economy, because it is a little bit of a mess at the moment in the Division. Now, as we all know, Ubisoft patched very early on to stop people exploiting the system and getting a large amount of Phoenix credits. This is because they were going to bosses and farming the bosses, and a lot of these people early on that found out about this ended up with a large amount of Phoenix credits and now have allowed them to buy a lot of top-end equipment. So for the people who had learned about this after the patch, they now face this much steeper climb to reach the same levels as these people who have gained a huge amount of Phoenix credits and now have all this high-end equipment. So now you could potentially be grinding for 10 to 20 times longer now to get to the same level of Phoenix credits as a player that initially utilised this trick of being able to farm the bosses. So as a whole, they really need to have a look at the economy and I guess rework it as such. Because at the moment, I'm probably sitting close to 900k of in-game currency. And really the only place I can spend this money is either at the various safe house vendors or the advanced weapon vendor. But the problem is the advanced weapon vendor is not refreshing his high-end weapons at all at the weekly reset. So I'm still left sitting on this money that I cannot use, and I don't know how to use it because I want to retain high-end weapons, and I can't do that. And they've created a similar problem with the Dark Zone itself and the credits you earn within that. Because most people are ranking up to level 30 before entering into the Dark Zone itself, what they're finding is basically they have all the equipment and weapons that they need to be able to tackle the higher level people within the Dark Zone. So with people not visiting the Dark Zone vendors prior to this, the money that they're now gaining within the Dark Zone is of no use to them because the Dark Zone vendors don't have anything worthwhile to go purchase. Now the problem is Dark Zone currency is very useful for buying the high-end blueprints that can be purchased from the safe houses, but to have a look at that, you have to grind through to level 50 to be able to do that. Now to consider that most average players will probably be lucky to grind to level 30, the likelihoods of them being able to grind to level 50 to then be able to buy those blueprints is probably very small. So the next thing that I think that needs a little bit of adjusting is the daily hard/challenge modes. Because at present, this is the only way for people to be able to get a good amount of Phoenix credits regularly outside of the Dark Zone. They have to complete these challenges. But what I'm finding through myself, I have a good set of gear, good set of weapons now, and that hard mode is extremely easy. I can breeze through it without even breaking a sweat and complete it very, very quickly. Then you have challenge mode, which is at the opposite end of the scale. And it can be a very frustrating experience. I know for myself over the last few days, I'd attempted quite a few of these challenge modes and failed to do it because the groups I was with had just got so frustrated or so upset that they get to a point where they either leave and leave us in a very untenable position, or the whole group would just give up because they had no choice. But this presents another problem because when the rest of the group leaves, you have sometimes one or two people and the game will not matchmake other people in to help you complete the actual mode itself. And that can be a very upsetting and frustrating experience when you spent 2 to 3 hours trying to go through this challenge mode to get to the end boss and then have everybody leave on you and not get rewarded for doing the work that you've done. So my concern is now that challenge mode has become too challenging and it's putting people off from the mode itself. And this may have something to do with the in-game matchmaking and how it's putting people together. But as I see it, any kind of challenge mode has got to be difficult, but it's also got to be fun and enjoyable. And, you know, you all work together to get that great reward at the end. But it shouldn't be this lesson in frustration that people just leave because they're so upset. And in a way, this is going to stop them or put them off ever coming back to this mode. So this is where I think they need to do a little bit of tweaking. Please, Ubisoft, can you please adjust the mob AI shotgunners? They're just utterly ridiculous. They have so much health and challenge mode, and you have no opportunity to be able to kill them in time. And they can basically two-shot you. I've seen them wipe out an entire group of 4 people within like 15 seconds. Something needs to be done. Either tone them down a little bit, or reduce the amount, or reduce the amount of damage that they actually do to give you half a chance. I was a bit critical of the Dark Zone in my last video when I talked about it in the beta. But I think that Ubisoft probably went too far with the changes in the Dark Zone when the game came out itself. It basically took the teeth out of the actual Dark Zone. You know, they took away the incentive to go rogue, and they really penalised people for going rogue, which can happen quite regularly. There was one time where I accidentally went rogue, and I think I lost around 15k of experience and about 10,000 Dark Zone points or credits. And that really, really hurt. I dropped nearly an entire level just through that. And it did take a little bit of excitement and challenge away from the Dark Zone. Always wondering if somebody's going to stab you in the back and kill you and take your stuff was something that made the Dark Zone that fun experience. But the good thing is Ubisoft was listening, and they have adjusted the Dark Zone and adjusted the way that the rogue system works so that you don't suffer as large a penalty. And I have less concerns about going rogue now than when I did before, when I knew I could basically lose a huge amount of experience and in-game currency for it. So I'm still a little bit unsure about the way they've done the zonings within the Dark Zone. And it still worries me a little bit because at this point in time, as we know, DZ01 and DZ02 are the starting areas. And most people can either solo or go around as a group and quite easily farm the various bosses and enemies. Even DZ03 can be soloed if you've got a good setup and good weapons. But to get to the level where you can actually start to wander into DZ04 upwards can be a very, again, steep climb to get to that point if you can't get the equipment that you need. So what we're finding is that there is no point to really go into DC4 and above because the experience you get from killing those enemies is only a little bit more than what you get in the lower levels. And as you know, going into those higher level areas, there's more potential for you to get overrun and basically killed and maybe even lose your stuff. So it's actually a safer bet for you to stay in DZ01, 02 and 03 than to go further into the map. And this is where I think they need to look at how the zoning is done and maybe adjust it a little bit more to give people a little bit more incentive to go into those areas instead of just making them these zones where nobody really wants to go unless you have the highest level equipment. I'm also interested to see is how they're going to deal with the content and the replayability going into the future. This is something that Destiny has struggled with a bit of late, where there's been this content drought as such. And what can occur is the community basically moves on and starts to play other games because they don't want to wait around for the content. They want to be able to do something more fun and exciting. But if the content's not there, people won't hang around. They'll basically move on and go play something more fun. And I definitely think this is something that Ubisoft and the Division is going to face in the future when it comes around to this content drought. How are they going to deal with that? Because as we know that the best way to lose any player base is to not update and not have good content to be able to look forward to or to be able to play. Because what will happen more often than not as a player, we'll say to ourselves, yes, I've replayed this mission 50 times, but is it really, do I really want to continue doing that? And what will happen is basically we'll wander off, we'll find another game that we enjoy, we'll invest our time in that. People will come back when that content is renewed, but you'll find that there's less and less people that come back because they get concerned that these droughts will occur on a regular basis. And this is the primary thing that I'm struggling with in The Division. How does my character relate to this whole story? We don't know anything about the agents. We don't know anything about why they came to be the agents that they are. There's no mystery around that. And even the storyline is very flat in a way. We know we have a bad guy, we have to kill lots of people to get to that bad guy and hopefully stop him. But this is the one area where it is lacking. And it doesn't really get my involvement and draw me into the actual world itself. And this is something that Bungie has done really well with Destiny, of having that great story, the lore and everything that really draws you into the world and wants you to come back to find out what's going on. And I think this is what is lacking from The Division itself, is that mystery, is that why are we here and why am I going to invest my time in this game? At this point in time, all The Division is to me is a character that runs around, kills lots of people and gets the higher end loot. And that's not something I want from a game. I want to be able to be invested in the game and be able to enjoy it and have fun. And that's where I'm struggling with The Division at this point in time. Don't get me wrong, I'm being a bit critical in this video, but I do like The Division and I do enjoy it. But it's still that thing that's missing that's putting me on the fence about it. But I want to be fair on The Division itself too. I want to give it the opportunity to be able to show me that it does have some depth and some mystery. And I'll see that as it progresses and as we see the updates and DLC releases, we'll see what it has to offer. So I'm going to continue to play the game and see where it actually leads us into the future. As always guys, I'd appreciate you taking the time to watch the video. If you'd like to leave a comment below, I'd love to see what you have to say. And thank you very much, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye.